You got what? I don't know what to call it. Yeah, so his mom works in there. So last week,
I said that kitchen system set.
you didn't do it. No, it should be like one person.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're on backdoors company. So luckily, it's actually
I got camping a lot.
they're awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Because it it's just really cool because it doesn't matter. Sorry, you should you can get trapped inside the military base and stay in
Trey looks tired.
Really?
What time do you start today? 5:30?
What's up?
What time do you start today? 5:30.
When I was, we were up late last night because we were watching Suits. What time did y'all get there, Doug? Yeah. Did you guys end up leaving at like midnight to go eat?
No. I got some kids, but I never actually watched it. This is really cool. I doubt it. I'm really sad.
What season was that, Trey?
Yep.
Okay. Are we asking? It's most recently.
Wait, I don't know how many.
What's that?
I don't know how many. 6, I believe. Really? Yeah. I don't mess with it. That's just today. I mean, that's like, that's So that's like you know, great price comparison to the and it's like I'll let you know the event's training tomorrow. I'm really excited. Last night. He's like, I actually remember
All right, guys. You guys get a chance to share takeaways, objectives. What do you think you'll be working on for your next couple of local preps? Excellent. Cool. One of the things I'll ask that you do, guys, during each of these talks that we have is to make sure that you come up with 1 to 2 takeaways from each message that you have, and then on top of that, make sure you have 1 to 2 action steps. Okay? That will help make you kind of make you more attentive for those of you that are in next level training. For those of you that are in first year prep, gives you action steps to constantly get better and improve during this process. This sharing exercise that we're going to do periodically throughout TLA is designed to kind of help encapsulate some of the messages that you're hearing and just remind you to make sure that you're focusing on takeaways. Okay, so we'll do this a lot throughout Leadership Academy over the next several months. So up next, guys, we are going to talk a little bit about the group interview. That will be the next assignment that you have, is working on the group interview. If anybody, for whatever reason, did not get the link to the management binder folder on Google Drive, it was emailed out. If anybody did not get the link to that, make sure to send me an individual email. There were a few emails that bounced. Sometimes it's just very little things. For example, an go backwards. Sorry, I should mention that. Just go straight back. Makes it easier. So do it in columns, not in rows. And if there's extras, just keep going back and around.
Can we hear stacks or am I going back?
Just tables. Yeah, table and back. Sorry. To the left, to the right, no back. All right. Okay. On the next section that we're going to be talking about, like I said, is a group interview. That'll be the next section that you're responsible for drilling for skill. Okay, so when we get together September 24th, you'll be responsible for the drill for skill of the full group interview. This is not the full group interview. Clearly, this is the copy of the talk that I gave at SC3, just in case for whatever reason you do not have it. Not that anything was left behind in the lake house, but besides a speaker, some shoes, somebody's dignity, a bunch of other things, there was some stacks of handouts and stuff. So we'll go ahead and review this real quick. It's particularly talking about the group interview section, and then in the actual folder itself, you're going to see the link for the group interview. The group interview, guys, is just that, is an interview. So it is not something that needs to be memorized. You will get it memorized the more that you practice it and get it down. However, it does need to be something where you're making it personal for each time, meaning you need to treat the interview itself as if it's the first time that you're learning every single time, meaning you need to make sure you're on script 100%. It's tempting sometimes to try to get it memorized and then just kind of wing it because you make it feel like you sound more professional. The challenge is, while you may sound more professional, you may also be giving people the wrong impression of what the job is, which can in turn hurt your show. And so unless you're on script 100% word for word, you need to make sure that you're using your leader's guide and just simply holding it just like this, right? You hold it in front of you, look down when you need to, flip to the next page when you need to get to that section, cover it just like this. Okay? There's nothing wrong with looking down and using your notes when you're interviewing people. You let them know at the beginning of the interview, hey, I'll be using my notes just to make sure I cover everything in a timely fashion too. Okay? So if you go into the interview itself, or this little packet right here, I want to talk about some interview situations. Okay? So let's talk about individual situations. A lot of times people have questions on what do you do when, sure, call me later. All right. So sometimes when you have these little situations, people come in and you don't know how to handle it. Okay, so we've got a couple of just general tips for you on this. The first scenario is when an applicant comes in with their parent for the interview. You know, I know that while for some of you, including myself, I would think, wow, why in the hell would you ever bring your parent to a job interview? Needless to say, there are some helicopter moms and dads out there in the world that want to be a part of every little thing that their mom or that their son or daughter does. Some of you guys have those types of parents, and I'm sorry, but you know that just means they love you, and that's kind of their best way of showing it. So there's nothing wrong, by the way, with that happening if you're the recruiter. Okay, meaning if somebody brings their parent in for the interview, I personally love it when a parent comes with their kid for the interview. The reason why I love it is because now I'm the one controlling the information that goes to the parent. They're not hearing it through their child. Okay, so that's actually a good thing if it's done the right way. So how do you do it? Well, very simple. You invite the parent in for the or for the pre-interview. So the pre and post, you have the parent sit in. I found in most scenarios, you invite them in for the pre-interview, they sit through that. A lot of times at the end, they're like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna let them do their thing, no big deal, right? And at that point in time, they've given you their full trust. They see that you're legit. They see that this is a professional job interview. They realize they're kind of out of place. And they usually go out and grab a seat in their car and they wait for the actual interview to finish. If they do want to stay for the second interview, just ask them to kind of grab a seat in the back. Tell them, hey, you're more than welcome to grab a magazine or something. Heck, if you want to, you can take notes. But there's nothing wrong with them being in the actual group interview. I found that a lot of times when the parent sits in the group interview, number one, they love the product because they see how well that works. They're instantly wowed by that. And the second thing is they see that it's a job that their son or daughter actually could do well with, build a resume, and they get all the information that we would normally have to let the kid tell the parent. They actually get it from us, which is good. So I've never had any issues with them being negative after sitting through the group interview. Okay, so inviting them to stay. Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. But always invite them to stay for the second interview if they want to and to sit in the back, okay? Mother and daughter, it could be father and son, either way is fine. They're both looking for work, okay? It's a unique situation. You don't often have this happen, but occasionally you do. It's a little awkward. What I will say is you want to keep both and just kind of, it says pre separately at the end, you want to post, it's really post. And you post separately at the end. What I typically try to do is set the daughter or the son for the most recent training seminar. Okay, you set them for the most recent training seminar and then set the mom or the father for the following seminar. Okay, the reason there is you want to allow their son or daughter to really, step up, fully grow, and live up to their potential, right? Sometimes if you got the parent and the child in the interview or in the training seminar, the parent will kind of dominate over the child and stunts their child's growth a little bit here. As we do know, our business model is set up in a way where it allows for young professionals to succeed in a quick fashion early on. It's great for people that are looking for supplemental income that are older. However, it is not designed for somebody who's in their 40s or 50s to come in and have it be their full-time profession right away. Okay, we do have a program for that. It's called Cut Go at Home. But for the Vector model with the team meetings on Wednesday nights, set up with student programs, student advancement, scholarships, that sort of thing. It's just always good to give the son or the daughter the first opportunity for success without having to compete with moms or son, dad with the initial list. And then after they see their son or daughter do the job, the parent can make a better decision as to whether or not they want to work with us. Okay. Freds come in together. You want to pre them separately. You know, I think, you know, also posting them back-to-back early on is important. The reason why it's important to post them back-to-back early on is that you don't want them just sitting there talking to each other while other people are being posted. Okay, it's always good to get them out of the way, just so that way they're not waiting around for each other after the interview. Also, you don't want them talking during the group, the second, I guess the post application part of the process. The other thing that's nice to do is to separate them. Okay, and just let them know, hey, I think it's more professional for you guys to sit apart during the second interview since you're applying for the same position, and allow each of you guys to be focused to take more notes as well. Okay, separating them is a good idea. Now, if it's boyfriend, girlfriend, just have them sit next to each other. That's fine. Last thing you may do is look like you're trying to break up a relationship on either side, right? You know, if a lady asks a lady to sit apart from her boyfriend, she may be like, what the heck, right? If a guy asks a guy to sit apart from his girlfriend, he may be like, what the heck? So if that's the case, let them sit beside each other, no big deal, okay? But again, just pre them early on, pre them back to back. You know, if you have a vocally skeptical applicant, okay, you want to control them early on. You know, for example, you got this little phrase right here. As you can see, there are people ahead of you. But if I'll meet with you as soon as I can, why don't you fill out the short application? I'll be right with you. If they're still vocal, have them go to a separate area of the office to fill out their application. And if they, after explaining to them, they get a lot more positive, then you can certainly keep them. What I found though is that most people, if they're after you say this first little phrase to control the situation, if they're still kind of openly vocal and kind of, you know, skeptical, loud, it's better just to boot them. You know, it's just no need in having them blow up your interview. You know, last thing you want to do is have to deal with that. This one's interesting. Okay, friends come in and you want one, but you're unsure about the other one. All right, that's always unusual. I will say that I typically do not follow this thing where it says schedule one for training the week after the next. I have them both come into training because more than likely that there's one that doesn't have a car anyway. They're going to have to rely on the sharper person to get them there to training. So it's better just to have them both come in together. But you may just want to let them know, hey, you know, if you've got one that's super sharp and one that maybe is a little rough around the edges and you're giving that person a shot because of the sharp person, you may want to tell the sharp person, hey, you know, for example, let's say that, you know, Devin, let's say that you're buddies with Mullins here, right? And let's say that I'm a little unsure about Mullins, okay? Well, what I do is I would say, hey, look, I mean, you know, Devin, you know, I know that you're friends with Michael. Do you feel like you guys would work well together if given the job and given an opportunity? And I was like, yeah, that'd be fine. It's like, all right, cool. Hey, based on your recommendation, I'm gonna go ahead and give Michael a shot. What I am gonna ask though is that you step up and you don't allow you know, his success to get in the way of your success. Right? And then when I talk to Michael, say, hey, Michael, I'm going to give you a shot. You know, I think highly of Devin. I think that you can perform well as well. What I'm going to ask you to do is I want to ask you to step up. You know, I'm going to say I'm giving you a shot based on the fact that I see potential in you. I need to see more of you in training than I saw in the interview. Is that cool? Right? And you just kind of, you challenge Michael to step up. You let Devin know that, you know, Michael's success is not going to be his success. And then you kind of go from there. Parent comes in with small kids. Oh, this one's fun, okay? You invite the whole family back into the pre-interview room. Yeah, you have them bring all 8 or 9 of them, however many come in, right? You have them all come back in. And I've had it happen where I've had kids sitting on the floor Indian style in my pre-interview room, right? It's sometimes it's a little much, but just get them out. Okay, you do not want to run a group interview with somebody and their children, okay? When I mean children, I mean like little kids, right? You just schedule them for a time to come back for a second interview and they can come back on their own. Okay? And if they don't show up, they don't show up, no big deal. But the last thing you want to do is make it seem like we're running a daycare, okay, during your interview. During the interview itself, if somebody starts to kind of be, you know, negative or they stop taking notes, if they're not being rude about it, meaning like, let's just say for whatever reason they're not taking notes, but they're not being rude. Like you can tell they're not really into the job, right? But they're not being super rude. I wouldn't do anything. Okay, I would just kind of let it go, especially if they're sitting like in the second row or kind of off to the side. I just kind of let them do their thing. Most people, if you're running an effective group interview, they're focused mostly on impressing you, not worried about what other people in the group interview do. However, if you see somebody in the group interview start to stand up, right? Like you could tell that they're just going to leave or whatever reason they're going to walk. Use the finger, not the middle one, but the pointer, right? Just cut them off, and you just cut them off, and you walk them right to the front door, right? So like, let's say for example that, again, I don't care how awkward it makes it seem, right? Like right here in this room, there's a lot of people in this room, and it's gonna be kind of awkward for somebody to get to the door. Usually, what ends up happening is they start shuffling their stuff, and they start kind of getting all their crap together, like putting away their notes, folding up their stuff. If they're, lady, they grab their purse, right, or whatever else they got. And you can kind of sense that they're about to roll, right? So all you do is, let's say you start shuffling. And again, this is kind of an awkward room because there's a lot of people for Adi to have to walk through. People are going to notice if Adi starts getting up and leaving to go out this room, right? So as soon as she starts getting her stuff, I'm going to say, yeah, Adi, can you go ahead and grab your stuff? So you just, as soon as you do that, whatever they were going to say stops. Like they're like, you're just like, yeah, Adi, like literally. So just Adi, like, go ahead and like, I'm doing this. Go ahead and start talking, and just like, go ahead and start saying anything, right? So I'm just walking around, and Adi, just say something. I don't care. You start talking. I'm talking about something up on the board, and Adi, what's that? Yeah, come on, man. As soon as you start as soon as you're like just, like I could be over here, right? And I'm like, you're not gonna be writing on a board during an interview, right? But let's just say that they're like way in the back, like you got like a 20-person interview happening, right? And I start to see that out of the corner of my eyes gathered her things, right? Usually the gathering process is fairly quiet. Occasionally it's a nightmare. They're just like shuffling things, and it's a distraction, right? But whenever you hear them start to either get up, like D start to stand, yeah, D actually, like as soon as you see her move, put a finger, that puts her in her place, or him in his place, right? And you just grab them, right? It's actually pretty fun to do, right? It's scary the first time you try it because you don't know what they're going to say in response to you, but it's actually just doing that's pretty effective, right? So go ahead. So D, go ahead. Yeah, D, go ahead and grab your stuff. Right? Yeah, come on with me. Right? Yeah. Right. And so we're gonna walk. It's gonna be awkward. Yeah, step over there. Yeah, come on up. Yeah. Watch out for Shannon. Yeah. Sometimes it's awkward like that. Like I'm like walking them around people and through people and stuff, and they knew they were gonna leave, but you just took control of the situation. Does that make sense? And if anything, they may respect you for it because you're not trying to be super rude, right? But you simply go like this. You say, "Hey, your interview's over, so wish you the best of luck." Right? Wow. Here's what happens, right? D is like, I have no idea what just happened, but I'm glad, right? Because I was asked to leave and I was ready to leave. Everybody else is like, holy shit, he just kicked her out of this interview. Her interview's done, right? And it was. If she was going to leave, her interview was finished, right? So it is done, right? Yeah. So D, your interview's done. Right, have a good day. And then you just go in front. All right, where was I? All right, cool. And then you just go right back into your group interview. Right, and again, because you're not being rude, because you're not trying to call anybody out, you're not like, hey, D, why aren't you taking any notes? Like, you don't want to do that, guys. I will say that sometimes that's I know what you want to, like, sometimes, especially when you get angry, you want to just like, how dare you not take notes during my interview, right? How dare you not want to do this job? However, it's not for everybody, and you don't want to be obnoxious about it, because I will say that if you're overly arrogant or rude, or you lose control, whoever loses control is the weakest one in the room, right? So let's say, for example, a D like just start, let's just say for whatever reason, a D is like on the way out, like just as like a one last like screw you to the interviewer. A D is like, yeah, this job's a scam anyway. I guess all I would do is I would just go back to the front. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, guys, some people, they don't get a job. They think it's a scam. So we don't just hand out jobs here. So let's go. And you just keep moving, right? And again, same thing. If D felt like she got the last word in, I didn't like blow. I could have been like, oh, fuck you for saying it's a scam. I could do that, but that makes you look weak. Does that make sense? So again, you just be composed, be confident, right? As long as you're in control, you're cool. Okay. Let's go into the actual interview itself, okay? And I know I mentioned this at SC3, but I want to spend a little more time kind of digging into this, okay? So for the office itself, many of you guys have been in the office, but what I want you to, as you're leaving today, or maybe you did during the break, maybe you did when you come in, take some of the visual cues that you saw when you walked into my office. And this office has been designed to be, ideally, the perfect recruiting office for Vector. I've had multiple managers mention to me, holy crap, like this is like the perfect Vector office. The way everything is laid out and set up, the only thing that would be, really there isn't a better layout that I could think of. I tried to, when I came up with this office layout, when I was looking for a new office, I had exactly what I wanted, which is that you had an interview room close to the front of the room, but not right when you walk in. People are greeted when they walk in by receptionists, people that are professional. From my pre-post office, which is right back in here through this little window right here. In that room, if you pull up those blinds, you can see in training, you can see the front door, you can see down the cubicles where the other receptionists are, and you can kind of see where people go into the group interview. So you can really see pretty much everything from that one little office there. The only thing that, if you were to try to make it perfect, if you had something that was like overly rude or obnoxious, and we could still do this now that we cleaned yesterday, you could walk them out this hallway instead of going back through where all the other applicants walk through. You could just walk them straight through the cubicle room out the door. There's a side entrance right there. So if you need to boot somebody that's being overly obnoxious, you can do it without anybody even really seeing them again. Okay, so it is laid out well, but other little things. For example, natural lighting is good. It's got the hardwood floors kind of keep it clean right when somebody walks in, as opposed to what happens with carpet. You can see, this carpet when I got the office about 2 years ago was brand new. Now it just gets beat up. It gets beat up over time, and this is just from, quite honestly, a lot of it's from TLAs and divisional events. It's not from people in training. It's just from people eating and spilling stuff. But it makes it easy when you have something you can clean with being hardwoods right when you walk in. There's a professional greeting desk that people sign in at. People are met with people, right? Versus some offices when you walk in, you're brought into a waiting room where there's nobody. It feels kind of cold. This feels warm and inviting right when you walk in. There is a waiting room up here where we could put overflow if we have overflow. Otherwise, they're brought into the interview group room. Okay, so the group interview room, it's set up with TV mounted on the wall. It's got obviously Blu-ray player in there to be able to play the DVD for the group interview. There's some trophies, signs of success, but it's also professional. It's not overly kind of kid-like our training room is, right? This looked like it was designed by a high schooler, hanging up posters, right? Whereas in the interview room, pretty much everything up there is framed and looks a lot more professional. There's there's music pretty much constantly playing in that room to have kind of a warm, welcoming feel too, so it doesn't feel kind of awkward. So the office setup is really important. As far as the looking the part, making sure that you're dressed the right way. Guys, I guess guys and gals, right? For both individuals, taking pride in your appearance, especially when you're running interviews, is really important. You can never be overly professional, unless you're wearing like a tuxedo. That's a little much. I would not wear that for an interview. You'll look like a clown. Okay, so or like a waiter. So do not wear a tuxedo to run an interview, but do wear a suit, a sport coat, something that helps make you look a more professional. Okay. As far as the greeter, they need to be somebody that knows how to greet properly as well. Okay. We talked about greeting properly. I noticed this in my little breakout. We were doing the pre-interview. Making sure you always use first and last name. Okay, that's really important. Okay, it's never just first name. If you just give your first name only, it automatically puts you on their level. Okay, you're the interviewer. That's important. With administrators, MVPs, they could just use their first name if they want to, because they usually go by first name on the phone anyway. Plus, if you've got females, especially attractive females that are running the front office, it's probably good just to have them use their first name anyway versus first and last name. Just last thing you want is some creeper to be sitting there searching them up on Facebook while they're sitting in the pre-interview. Okay, gentlemen, if you're cute, maybe do the same. If you're greeting and sitting at the front, okay. Otherwise, I would just say, always. So if you're a manager, first and last name, and if you're a manager in training, an intern, first and last name. Okay, it just again gives you control and shows that you're somebody of importance. Okay, if you just get, hey, even if I walk in, I said, hey, I'm Trey. I do that when I'm training people. The reason I do it when I'm training people is it's more designed to kind of, put me closer to their level. Okay, but when I'm interviewing, it's always first and last name. It's not until I train people I say, hey, just call me Trey. Okay, but before then, it's first and last name because they have not earned the right. They're not working with you yet. Okay, atmosphere itself, fun, professional, bright. Have some sort of pictures or awards or standings or something up that shows signs of permanence and success. Okay? Wide variety of magazines. You have different types of magazines: men's health, women's health. You can have some gossip mags as long as they're not like the really trashy, crazy, overly gross ones, right? That talk about any of the Kardashians, really any of them. Like, just leave those magazines off if you can avoid. Now, sometimes it's good to have one just because everybody likes to read those. They're good gossip stuff. So, but have a wide variety of magazines. Men, no Maxim magazines. I don't know if anybody even subscribes to that, but that used to be a problem back in the day. People subscribed to Maxim, they'd have those out, not what you want in your interview. Okay. With the radio, guys, have something on there that's not going to offend anybody. I don't care if they necessarily love that station. What you're not trying to do is you're not trying to have people love your music taste, but you don't want to offend anybody with your music taste. So nothing too extreme on any side. Right? I was just in Las Vegas, and there was a festival called Psycho Fest going on at my hotel. It was interesting, to say the least. Right? It was nonstop 90 death metal bands playing over the course of the weekend. Some of them didn't end until 7 in the morning. So there were parts that were pretty cool. And a lot of the people there were super, super friendly and engaging. However, there was also a lot of people that were very intimidating until you start talking to them. You don't want somebody to be intimidated and scared walking into your interview. So if they walk in and there's, death metal playing from the radio, or there's, trap music, bumping through the loudspeakers, that could, some people be like, all right, I feel at home. Some people would be like, you know what, this is a little strange. Why is this guy wearing a suit listening to this, right? So, so just try to keep it somewhat proper there. I will say Bob Marley doesn't offend anybody, right? So you can always do Bob. Bob Marley is probably fine, right? Dave Matthew really doesn't offend anybody. I used to have a Dave Matthews CD that played on a repeat, and so it was a little much, I think, for some people eventually. But, but yeah, getting yourself in the proper mindset is good. Okay. As you see right here during the greeting itself, you want to slow yourself down. It is natural when groups are bigger or when you're a new recruiter to be rushed, to feel rushed. Okay, so just slow yourself down. Make sure to force yourself to breathe. That's something that I mentioned also in the pre-interview there. Just make sure you're breathing. If you force yourself to breathe naturally, it's going to calm you down, slow you down a little bit. Okay. During the pre-interview itself, not being rushed. I think Sam mentioned this, but always checking their schedule to make sure that there's no conflicts with training. That is something that, it's hard to do during the simulations here that we role play. But when you're actually running an interview itself, you want to make sure you're looking for any conflicts with training during the pre-interview. And then just say, if accepted, we need to train you on whatever day that may conflict, right? Let's say, for example, that Friday's is a different schedule than what you need them to have, right? Well, hey, if accepted one time for training, we need you Friday from, let's say it's 2 to 7. That's something you can make one time for training. And more often than not, if you do it in the pre-interview, they say yes, okay? Always nod when asking if they have more time. Okay, that's big. Using that vector nod there. Okay? And freeing people as they fill out their application, but never letting somebody control the order of how you view people. All right. During the group interview itself, put your sharpest applications on top, your sharpest people. Okay. You also want to put them right in the middle. And when you bring them up to the interview room itself, we're going to put them right in the middle, spread out so that you got sharpest right in the middle. the next two sharpest to their sides, and then branch out around that. Okay, next row, if you need to do the same thing, sharpest in the middle, and then spread out. If you're whoever hand you are going to control the DVD player with. Okay, so let's say, for example, that you're controlling the DVD player with your left hand, and you're going to turn like this to click it. You want your least sharp person to be right here. And the reason why is they're the ones that's going to get the most of your back during the group interview. Okay? You're still going to make sure you're opening up each time you click, but you're naturally going to be getting less eye contact with them because you're turning away from them. So typically, whatever hand you are is the hand you hold the clicker with, and you turn. So if you're left-handed, least sharp person right here. You're right-handed, least sharp person right here. Okay? And you want to make sure that you're giving good eye contact, but also vary it up. You don't want to be sitting there staring at a row and then down like this, because then you look really creepy and weird. And it looks like you're going through the motions. You don't look like you're interviewing. You look like you're trying to get through a presentation. Okay, so kind of vary it up. Vary the amount of eye contact you do take, but don't stare at somebody so long that it becomes uncomfortable for them. But if somebody has not been paying attention, you may want to wait there and just kind of stare at them until they start looking up at you. And then eventually when they do look up at you, you can look up. And so it's just one of those things where sometimes it takes longer than others to get their attention, but eventually when you get their attention, what'll happen is they'll see it, and then you can move on, right? So that's what you do, right? You just simply do that. There you go, Travis. All right, thank you. All right, so I know, and I figured you were paying more attention. All right, so but he was actually looking at this, but you do want to make sure that you're dialing in, getting their attention, making sure they're with you. If you have a proper prep that can happen, that does do a lot towards giving you control. A proper prep, okay, and this is something you could teach your receptionists if they don't already know it. You can do it as an AM intern, but here's the keys to a proper interview prep. Okay, so somebody walks in when the I don't even think this is on here. It's not. Okay, so this would kind of go underneath of, taking notes on this, underneath where it says pre-screen before group interview. So when you're preing the last person, all right, have your receptionist, AM intern, key staff member, whoever, right? Whoever's observing your interview. They simply go to the front of the room. They turn off the music. Make sure they've introduced themselves to everybody. And it's just simply like this. So you just literally go up to the front. They gather up the magazines. They pause the thing. You say, hey, guys, I just want to introduce myself real quick. So I just want to introduce myself real quick. Go over your name and role. I just want to introduce myself real quick. Name and role. I want to give you a few tips for the interview. You give them the interview tips, wish them, make sure they've got pen and paper, and then wish them the best of luck. So here's the exact flow of what I say, okay? And you could vary it based on your role, but it still works, right? So I'd walk up to the front, pause it. Hey guys, I want to introduce myself real quick. My name is Trey Ketchum. I'm the owner. So if accepted, and that's the key part, if accepted, I'd be helping you out with training. Or if accepted, I'd be the one training you, whatever your role is going to involve in their job. I'll be the one helping you out with training. As you can see, we do have a lot of people applying with us. So I know whoever it is that's interviewing, right? So I know Mr. Blanchard has to be pretty selective. Or I know Mr. Blanchard can't work with everybody. If I give you a few tips for the interview, number one, make sure to take a lot of notes. Does everybody have pen and paper? And then I always say this, because nobody ever wants to admit, at least they don't want to admit to me for whatever reason. They don't want to admit to me they don't have pen and paper. So I'll say, does everybody have pen and paper? Does anybody need pen and paper? And at that point in time, there's like, yeah, I need some. Okay, it's like, all right, cool, yeah, we'll definitely need that. Also, make sure to get involved in the interview itself by answering questions. And we'll look to see how you interact in the group setting. So then I said, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get pen and paper. Does anybody need a pen? Okay, cool, get that, hand it back out. All right, guys, well, I just want to go ahead and wish you the best of luck, okay? And that's it. So it's very simple. It gives the manager that's interviewing control, and it makes sure that everybody's got pen and paper to take notes. They're ready to start answering questions. It kind of breaks down that kind of uneasiness about should I talk, should I not talk. You want people kind of coming out a little bit during that group interview. And if they aren't the most outgoing person in the world, at least they're taking a lot of notes, and that's the way they can separate themselves. Okay? So I'll give you a couple tips. Number one is take a lot of notes. Somebody have pen and paper. Does anybody need pen or paper? Yep, you'll definitely need that. Okay. Also making sure to answer questions during the group interview because we look to see how you interact in a group setting. All right, so I'm going to get pen and paper for everybody. All right, here. All right, guys. So again, good luck. That's it. And a lot of times you're like, thank you. All right, and then they're prepped properly. They're ready to go. You've already introduced yourself, so that way at the end, if you're the one training, especially, when the interviewer mentions you by name, they're feeling better about your role. If you're the one interviewing, you walk in empowered. If you can teach your receptionist to do this or MVP to do this, it works just as effectively, by the way, as if the owner, the assistant, anybody else, just so that there's somebody doing it, making sure that the interview room is prepped properly. But what it does is it also kind of gets the seriousness back. So if they've been kind of hanging out, chit-chatting, kind of connecting a little bit, waiting for you to finish meeting with people, it's like, all right, now everybody's focused and ready for the interview. Okay. So again, going back to this group interview, changing voice inflection if you need to, in order to kind of stress the key points. I know a lot of this is stuff that Sam has mentioned. I'm not going to walk through every individual section like Sam did, but it's on the script. Biggest thing, guys, is just to read the script out loud when you're practicing. Okay, so when you're practicing, when you're role playing, you really need to do it out loud. You can't just read over it and have it. It's saying it out loud. Also, standing in a room similar or comparable to what your interview room will look like or be like helps out. So that way you have proper projection of your voice. Okay. Another thing that helps out a lot of recruiters when they're newer is to have a cup of water or something with them. Guys, because if you're not used to running interviews, sometimes your voice will dry out in the middle of the interview. And there's nothing worse, by the way, than having like a tickle or a cough or like you start to lose your voice right in the middle of it. And I've had it happen once where you didn't have water and had like a little tickle back here. I'm like, my eyes are like watering. I'm like about to choke, I'm like trying to speak. I'm trying to like power through it. Not happening, and it was awkward. Right? Now, the other thing, guys, is they don't, again, kind of like in the demo, they don't know what you're supposed to say or how you're supposed to say it. And the business has changed slightly since when I first opened up in 2005. Namely, is that we don't have quite as many interviews, and they're not quite as big as they used to be. Business used to be a lot different. You used to place a newspaper ad, you had to interview a ton of people to get a handful of people, right? Business is a lot more streamlined now, which is a good thing. But I remember it was on Tuesdays, you used to have to run 4 interviews in big offices. You'd run a 9:15, 12:15, 3:15, and 6:45. Okay, and as the office owner, I wanted to make sure that I had control of those interviews at the beginning of the summer. So I would run PDI from 7 to 9 a.m. And then I would run these 4 interviews back to back to back. Well, sometimes you get tired. So I had moments where, I remember there was one time I fell asleep in the middle of my interview. I kept talking. I had no idea what I was saying, but literally I woke up and kind of looked around. All of them are still staring at me, taking notes. I had no idea what I had just covered or said. I mean, there was a span of about 5 minutes. You guys ever done that? Like you've been driving and fallen asleep while driving? You guys have never done this. Well, better people than I am. Well, I have done that. None of you guys have ever gotten a car. Next thing you know, you're at your house.
Yeah. While you're driving.
You never know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't remember going to bed.
Some of you guys have not lived, apparently. But yeah, there's nothing quite as scary or as exhilarating as hopping into your car, ending up somewhere that you knew how to get to by being on autopilot, but you had no idea you don't remember getting it, right? Just car, you're like, oh, right? Well, I had that happen in an interview where I fell asleep I don't remember what I was saying. But I looked down, everybody was still taking notes, so I just kind of picked a spot randomly and kept going, right? I think I probably repeated myself. I saw one person kind of look questioned, like maybe I've heard this before. Just kept going, right? We used to have it where they used to be written on whiteboards, and we had a guy, a good friend of mine, Matt Drinkon, who was starting to write, and he fell asleep as he was like writing a word, and he had like this big squiggle mark, and he like looked up, saw it, and like had to erase. Luckily now it's all on DVD, but yeah, so that can happen. But as long as you're confident, they don't know any better. I've had people where I sat down in the post interview, and I've asked them if they had any trouble finding us. Right, so they've already been through an entire interview, asked them any trouble finding us. I've had it where at the beginning of a pre-interview, I asked them if I'd answered all their questions. Right, and they're like, "Well, actually, I got a few." And I'm like, "Yep, that's why we're here." Right, it's like, it happens sometimes like that. It's a little embarrassing, but so long as it's as long as you take control, right? And that's what happened. Okay, I've had it happen where you don't like to promote this, but this is that doesn't matter. So let's just say that you've got an upset stomach, okay, and it's going to happen. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's either going to burp or come out the basement, right? But either way, there's some gas that needs to be, happen, all right? So all you do, all right, is as you're walking, remember, where's the least sharp person? If you're left-handed, they're right there. I mean, if you got to have a sacrificial lamb, it might as well be that, right? So all you do, is just kind of casually kind of walk, plant. When you plant, hopefully it's quiet. Please, just keep going. All right? Hopefully it doesn't smell. If it does, all you do is ready? So you plant, let's say, right? You just kind of plant, you drop, come back, and if it smells, as you walk, you just and so now they assume it's him. He knows, right? He knows. Or she knows, but everybody else, they think it's him. All right. And if it's loud, then that's when you really got to sell it. Okay? That's when you get like a little air biscuit or something that goes bad, right? Like just like burnt or something. And you just give them the finger, right? No. And again, they know, right? They know. But everybody else, they assume, right? It's like,
so you post them first.
Yeah, you get rid of them first, right? You've lost this person forever. You no longer have them, right? I mean, it's so rare that happens. I mean, it's so rare. I can count on probably one hand in my career the time that's happened. Now, but I'm just saying, you gotta, you just gotta hope, right? You just gotta hope, right? So if it goes, you just, kind of walk away, and if it stinks, you just come back. Just a little pause and kind of look. If it's loud, then you kind of right away and just give them the finger shake. And then they know, right? They know. Yeah, I guess you could always say, "Hey, buddy, about the group interview, sorry for taking one for the team." It was either you or me. You or me.
I'd like to hire you on the spaces.
You're a good sport, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you a shot, right? No, you can give them a shot then. If they know and they call you out in the post, that's pretty funny, I think. So, all right. But the whole point is, guys, be in control, right? Be in control, be on the script. With pay, it doesn't need to be crystal clear to a third grader, right? If they don't understand the pay, then those are the questions mom and dad are going to ask. How much you getting? So what exactly you gonna be doing? How exactly you get paid? Those are the two questions usually mom and dad ask. Okay, so what exactly you be doing? How are you gonna get paid? Okay. What I like to do is I like to build up the parts that, as representatives, we seem most excited about, I kind of downplay in the interview and build up the parts that maybe are not that great, right? So for example, things that we are most fired up about are going to be like the commission and the product, right? In that case, you want to kind of lowball those. And Sam mentioned that a little bit in her talk about the product itself, right? You kind of downplay how great it is. It's like, yeah, of course it's awesome, right? And they should be overly impressed while you're kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's just what it is here. During the pay, excited about the base pay, kind of, hey, by the way, if you do well, the incentive is there. It's kind of like the sharp people will be like, man, I'm excited about the incentive. But you don't want to come across as salesy. If you're really pushing the incentive pay, it may come across if you're trying to close them or trying to sell them on the job. Okay? Take control at the end of the room, right? And how you take control at the end of the room is you spread people out. I see this happen a lot during the interview where people will spread people out, and instead of spreading them out, they say, hey guys, just go ahead and spread out. And so literally people move like 6 inches and they're just sitting in their exact same seats. You want to pick people up again. So, we'd have a D, like a D, go ahead and have your up from back here, put it back here, right? Put people where you want them. Sharp people, somewhat near sharp people, people that may be problem children, right? Put them kind of on the outskirts, right? If you're a little worried about them. The other thing is while you're walking around and they're filling out their application or their acceptance sheet, make sure everybody has clicked yes before you grab anybody to meet with them. The last question and ask is, if accepted, would you be willing to try the program? Or would you be excited to do the job or something along those lines, right? Make sure everybody's clicked yes on those yes or no questions. If anybody checks no, that's who you meet with first. Okay, and you just get them out. No sense in in having them sit there and fill out the questions as to why they feel like they'd be a good fit and what they like the most. If they don't feel like it's a job for them, meet with them one-on-one relatively quickly. I've had it happen now, by the way, when you pull people back. It's like, hey, sorry, I hear you said if accepted, this isn't something you'd be excited about doing. And they're like, no, I would. Sorry, I thought you said, and sometimes I don't even know what they're thinking when they fill that part out. It's like, no. What I'm saying is I didn't know if I'd be accepted, so I didn't want to. I mean, they just come up with random reasons sometimes. So if they are excited about doing the job, then obviously you do a normal post. But if they do check, if they're not accepted, just say, okay, cool. So why's that? And sometimes they're just like, hey, man, I mean, I really am not looking to do this, blah, 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 blah. If there's somebody you think is really sharp, you may be able to say, hey, look, I wouldn't be spending time with you if I didn't think it'd be worth your time. I'd advise you to at least come to the first day of training, check it out, and see for yourself. That way you know. But I'll tell you, more often than not, if somebody clicks no, it's because they're not the right type of person for the job. And if you can't get them convinced in 35 minutes about how awesome the job is, and you having a 5-minute conversation with them probably won't convince them. So just let them go, okay? Let them go about their merry way. Treat them professionally. Let them have a good leaving feeling. There's a really good shot that 3 or 4 of their friends are probably going to be interviewed throughout the course of the summer. Last thing you want them to do is call their buddy and be like, yeah, that person was a jerk to me because I said it wasn't for me. I'd rather them say, you know what, that job wasn't for me, but they seem like a really cool person. Check it out, okay? That's on the group interview. In the post interview, there's genuine reasons to accept or critical. I try to find something in the pre-interview that stood out, something about them as a person that would make them a good fit for the job. And I also look for something they did in the group interview that stood out. Right? So something about them as a person, something about them in the group. Okay? Making sure you're walking through the training outline and leader's guide is big, just to make sure they're all on the same page. And then the other thing is that it says right here, recruiting calls, training reminders. That's kind of old school. I don't think you need to do that. They get enough reminders via email, text, and everything else with Vector Live nowadays. This was kind of before when there was no reminders. So during the group interview, guys, what you guys will be working on the local preps. Okay, so you've got really the next 3 Wednesdays. You'll be working on the group interview. First half of the group interview, basically from intro to market, will happen at this upcoming Wednesdays. Local prep, training or sales program till the end will happen the following, and then the 3rd week before the next prep that we do, you'll want to just role play the whole thing. As just a general rule of thumb, you do not have to have this memorized in order to get a 5. I do not require that as a mandatory. In fact, I'd rather somebody be confident with being able to look down at the top and be able to say it than to try to remember it off the top of their head. Because I've seen when people try to remember things off the top of their head, they start looking up, they start looking away, and they stop recruiting. They stop focusing on their interview class and spend more time focusing on trying to remember the words, and it takes away from their ability to actually explain the position to people. Okay, it's kind of like a rep doing a demo without a white book. Okay? You want the representative to be confident on the rec approach. You want them to be confident on the close, but then the actual presentation itself, that could just be used from an outline, and that's totally fine. Okay, now eventually you get it down so much where you're confident where you can just do it without it. But I will say that it's better to have the outline in front of you and not need it than it is to need it and not have it. Okay. So any questions on the group interview? Nope. Okay. So again, to get a 5, we're going to be grading on things like your presence, your professionalism, your tonality, your ability to control a room, little things that slip in that hurt people's gradings during the group interview portion, fillers, isms, right? Everybody has their own isms, the ums, the actuallys, that's what I'm saying, that's what I mean is, those little fillers that you kind of throw into casual conversation as you're speaking when you're nervous. Those will slip in. For a lot of people, it's just the ums. Yeah.
Is there an actual script?
Yep. It's in that, for whatever reason, I don't know why you didn't get that band binder outline, but I'll get it to you. And for those of you that didn't, if you send me an email, I got Madison's email. Rob, I got yours, obviously. So, like I said, sometimes it's little things, right? You're missing an E, or there's a period that's missing somewhere in your email address, for whatever reason, didn't transfer. So we'll make sure that we get it. If you don't have a Gmail, sometimes that's why you didn't get the link. So when I send it out, it's done through Google Drive. So if you didn't get that, maybe create a Gmail account and send it to me, and I can send you a link back with that. Okay. Yes, the group interview is there. I didn't print that off just because it is fairly lengthy, and I'd rather you have a copy for your own records that you print off when you need it, and then you have it directly in your office versus printing off a bunch of extra paper and then having it get lost. Okay, but do print it off and have it, and make that your interview. Okay? Put your name at the top of it. That's another thing I see people do is they print out their interview, they leave it in the interview desk for an interview to happen, and they go back a couple days later to run their interview, and it's missing. That's not good. You want to have a copy that's in your binder at all times, and then you could certainly have one that you carry with you to the office and back, or in the office, or leave in the office to have. You just put your name at the top. Okay. Other things is pacing. When you're in front of a room, it's natural to, especially if your feet start to hurt, to kind of walk around. If you don't have a wellness mat sitting down there in the front, it's easy for your feet to hurt a little bit. So just make sure when you're walking, like I walk and try to plant. Okay, don't just pace. Some people. I remember a guy named Chris Reen was the best at this. Reen used to he would literally get up and give a message, and it was like watching a tennis match. The whole time you're trying to focus on him, he's walking back and forth speaking, and it was incredibly distracting. Okay, so when you're interviewing, stand in front of the TV. Okay, when you go to point at something on the TV, step to the side to address it, and then step in front so that, again, you're the focus, not the screen. Okay, if the screen is the focus, that's a presentation, not an interview. Okay, it's an info session, not an interview. Okay, if you have somebody at the end of the group interview, when you ask them, so what was your overall impression of the company? If their impression is, oh, you did a great job, it's basically telling you that you're an amateur. And they're building you up, which, why? You're recruiting them. You're not trying to win their approval. They're trying to win your approval. Does that make sense? So if you're hearing a lot of, hey, you did a great presentation, or, oh yeah, you did a really good job. Now, if they're just trying to butter you up because they want a job, that's a little different. You could tell the difference between somebody's trying to just, blow smoke to try to impress you versus like they think that you're trying to get their approval on what you did. That's not good. All right, so you want to be interviewed. All right. So, questions? No? Feedback? Comments? Takeaways? Write them down. All right. Takeaways and action steps you want to jot down. I'm excited about the next little section. Next section we've got, guys, is going to be conflict management and situational leadership. All right. Situational leadership, guys, is one of my absolute favorite things to talk about because it is one of the first steps towards understanding and managing people. And it's one of the things that is probably the most universally applicable topics that you'll encounter on a day-to-day basis in your life. And the reason why I say this is we talk about it being leadership in general. All right, we'll put this on the big screen here so you can see it. Okay. So this is in the folder, but there's different styles of management that people need, really based on two things. Okay, their development. So how much they know and how excited they are. Okay, if you can't really see, sorry, but think of it like this. Okay, if you're taking notes, you got this big square, right? Okay. And right here, what we're going to call D1, okay? So developmental stage 1. This is where your knowledge, okay, is very low. Development level 4 is where your knowledge level is incredibly high. Okay. And then D2 and D3 are in the middle. Now, have any of you guys heard of, in statistics, standard deviations and normal bell curves and stuff like that? Okay. That actually applies when it comes to development stages as well. So, okay, not perfectly centered, but you get the idea. Okay. So, what happens right here is as knowledge increases, right? So it's on this line, every point along this line further to the left is a higher knowledge base than to the right. Okay? What we found is there's kind of almost an inverse relationship at first, and then it goes in the same proportion relationship with enthusiasm. Okay? So what happens is enthusiasm right here is really low. Enthusiasm level here, as you go further down, is really high. So think about it. Anytime you encounter a new endeavor, it be a new relationship, new friendship, a new sport, a new video game, right? There's that natural high energy, right? You're excited to read it, right? You're excited to, encounter it, right? Beginning of the school semester, you're super fired up, right? Because as you go into that endeavor, you don't know what you don't know, right? You're just excited. You're just happy. They call it, what do they call it? Blind, dumb, deaf, and happy, right? You're just naive, right? You're just fired up, right? Think about when you're brand new, day one of training, you're just excited. You're sitting in training, you're like, man, this is great. Manager likes me, feeling cool. There's cool people here. You're excited. Fast start, right? Think about it. You're in your fast start. When you're brand new at the job, you're selling not because you are knowledgeable, right? The reason you sell when you're new is because you're excited. and customers see your enthusiasm and your conviction. And so even if you're, not, the most educated person when it comes to explaining things to your customers, they see that you really believe in it, and so they're tied in, right? I remember I didn't know this at the time, but I was mistakenly told by a certain manager, I'm not going to mention who, but he's a pretty good DVM now, that thermoresin was the material, our handle material, on the Apollo spaceship. The only material that did not melt as it came crashing back to Earth. So I hear this, I'm like, damn, that's pretty good material. So I told all my customers that. And then one of my customers was like, dude, you do realize that there's no way that thermoresin, which has a melting point of 400 degrees, is gonna make it through the Earth's atmosphere and not burn, right? Like, you do realize that? And I'm like, hey, I'm just going by what I was told, right? I didn't know any better, right? It's just, you just kind of went with it, right? But so when you're new into a relationship, right? You're just excited. Everything about the relationship's exciting, right? You're happy to spend time just because, well, it's new, it's different. Like, somebody actually called you and cares about your day. It's like, man, this is different. This is cool, right? We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, right? But you're just excited, right? It's like, man, this is so different. Somebody cares about me. Somebody wants to spend time, right? Want to go out to my beat? Yes, perfect. This is good, right? Everything's great, right? When you start to learn a new subject matter, you're excited about it. As you get into management, you're excited about it. Okay, you have low knowledge, high enthusiasm. Okay, people in this situation need a lot of direction. Okay, so the management style to take for people in this situation, so representatives that are brand new in our business, is what's called direction. So they need high directive and low supportive behavior when it comes to managing somebody that is in this role, right? Think about when you're in training. Okay? In training, as a manager, you're not going to hear, as a trainee, you're not going to have a manager say, so what do you think should be the best phone approach to use for a customer? Right? Because more often than not, it's wrong, right? Because you don't know. As a trainee, you don't know. In fact, you would think, well, if I want to schedule appointments with people, the best way to schedule would be, hey, what's a good time to come see you? Because that's what you think, like that would be a good time. Or, if when you're talking, right, the whole idea of offering 2 times, like that seems so foreign, right? Until you have to teach them, hey, have you ever been in a relationship? Ask your significant other, what do you want to eat? What's the answer you get? I don't know, what do you want to eat, right? We teach them that phrase, we teach you guys in training that phrase so that you understand the importance of making sure to offer 2 times, not to simply say, so what's a good time to come see you? Or asking, hey, when do you want me to come over, right? Or do you want to do an appointment with me? Or on a demo at the end, just saying, hey, did you want to buy anything? Versus asking specifically for something, right? These are a lot of things that you got to teach, right? So there's a reason why the creed during training is to follow what? Right? Follow the manual. Don't think, just read, right? Because the truth is, when somebody has low knowledge, thinking can hurt them, right? It can, right? It can get you into trouble, right? So they need a direction style. Directing is the type of management style that somebody needs in that place. As far as the phrase, the thoughts that go through people's head, if they're in D1, when they're basically low competent and high commitment. So they're committed or enthusiastic, right? Another word for enthusiasm is commitment, right? High commitment, high enthusiasm. They're hopeful, they're inexperienced, they're curious, they're new and unskilled, they're optimistic, they're excited, they're eager, they're enthusiastic. Best way to describe somebody in this stage is they don't know what they don't know, right? So don't know what they don't know is how you would characterize somebody in this stage. And if they don't know what they don't know, it's good just to give them direction. Okay, what they need is they need to acknowledge their enthusiasm and transferable skills, clear goals and clear priorities, action plans, information, boundaries, limits, step-by-step for information and learning, direction about how, concrete examples. Think about the training seminar that you guys go through. It's all of this. Okay? Then, eventually what ends up happening is you start to learn more. You start to figure things out. Okay? And as you start to figure things out more, your knowledge level goes up, your commitment starts to waver, your enthusiasm starts to wane. As you go further into that endeavor, you start to realize exactly what you signed up for. And it's like, shit. This is, there's more to this than I thought, right? And in that stage, that's where it's really important that as a leader, you have coaching. Okay? Now, how would you describe a coaching mentality, okay, or a coaching management style? Think about your best coaches. Okay. What did they do? What did the best coaches that you had in sports do? Pushed you, inspired, but they also taught, right? There's a lot of teaching involved during that process still, right? So it wasn't just, hey, do this, do this, do this. There was also, hey, let's show you what to do. Let's talk about it, right? So, so it's highly directive, but also highly supportive. So it's constant kind of checkpoints of, instruction, but then also, you're getting feedback throughout the whole process. So coaching is really important during this, right? How do you know if you're in D2? By the way, I will say during management training, during the Leadership Academy program, you will go through this, okay? If you haven't already. Who in here has been through Leadership Academy? Some of you guys multiple times. You still go through it, right? I'm looking at Urel and Michael the most because they've been through it multiple years. Adi, this is your second time going through it, but for a lot of you, this is your first time. Like, it's usually either this management training leadership academy program or the next one. It's one of the Septembers usually. Occasionally, you're just dense, right? Elevator doesn't quite go to the top floor, or you're just so space cadet that you make it all the way to October before you realize what you signed up for, right? It's like, oh, gotcha. Right? But usually it's this prep or the next one where you start to get to this part where you start getting into D2, okay? Now, D2 is a scary spot, okay? Right? It's, you ever watch the movie Wedding Crashers? Yeah. Okay, there's a scene in Wedding Crashers where, they're talking. He's like, yeah, we lost a lot of good men out there, right? And she's like, playing with the Yankees? He's like, yeah, unruly fan, trade deadline, right? That's D2 for us. Okay, this is where a lot of people get to D2 in their developmental stage of anything. It could be a relationship, could be a new career, it could be a new workout program, it could be a cleanse or a lifestyle change. It's when it gets to this part that it starts to get tough. All right, let's say somebody's trying to give up sugar. Easy to give up sweets for a day or two. Easy, right? Some of you guys are like, no, it's hard. But it could be real easy to give up something, but then eventually you get to a place where it's like, it's Halloween, right? All the candies are here, right? Man, there's a lot of temptation, right? Maybe you're stressed out. Maybe each sweets is like a trigger, right? Because of stress, right? Stress triggers it. But whatever it happens, it gets to that place where it starts, and this is where a lot of people slip. Okay? So when you're in D2, here's kind of how you start to feel. And I'm not asking you to tell me this right now, but I want you to think about which of these adjectives describes where you're at currently. Okay, you already talked about D1, right? Hopeful, inexperienced, new, unskilled, optimistic, excited, eager, enthusiastic, don't know what you don't know. And maybe some of you. Some of you guys maybe in D2, where you feel overwhelmed, confused, demoralized, demotivated, frustrated, disillusioned, discouraged, incompetent, okay, inconsistent. Then eventually you have flashes of competence and breakthroughs. Right? But it feels like they're few and far between. Best way to describe people in D2 is you know what you don't know. It's where you start to figure out, you know what? There's a lot more to this than I was thinking. I don't know why I was thinking there was going to be not much, but there's a lot, right? You know, it's like when people go from that dating stage to being in a committed relationship. So there's more to this than just liking somebody. You know, you make sacrifices, you have to make promises and commitments. You have to go through. You can't just act randomly, right? You know, when you're in this stage in the business, right? You start with Leadership Academy. It's like you realize